Hi there and welcome along to the Four Lads Had a Dream podcast network. My name is Scott Paterson. If you're joining us on our YouTube channel, thank you very much for doing that. If you're listening on any of our audio channels, we're really grateful for you doing that. We'll punt that as the next 20 minutes or so goes on. My name's Scott Paterson. We are here to speak about the women's team, and it's our first women's update of the season. Joining me to discuss it all for the next 20-25 minutes or so is Stevie Clifford, the boss. How are you doing, buddy?
I am good, mate. I am good. It's been an eventful few weeks, so there's plenty to discuss for the women's side.
Absolutely. And this is the first time we've ever podded together. Just thinking that. First time we've ever podded together.
It's a whole lot of bald for people, Scott. I hope they can manage it.
So listen, what I do want to speak about for the next wee while, from the women's perspective, they've had a really positive start domestically. Stevie, European has not been as positive, which we know about. They've done a lot of good business in the summer leading up to the season starting. From a podcast perspective, we were lucky enough to get some access to Donald Gillis, which I'll encourage you to speak about over the next little while. And there has been some people that have moved out. Rachel McLaughlin, of course, left in the summer, and Rachel Rowe slightly before then. So there's a bit to discuss in the next wee while. Headlines thus far, August, September, where are you on them?
Well, headlines is incomings look good.
Yeah.
At a snapshot, incomings look good. Outgoings could really hurt us in the long term because both were fabulous players.
Yeah.
League form has been sensational, and we've actually had a wee bonus result for our rivals in there as well.
Yeah.
So that has been a helpful start for us. It looks like very quickly the players and team have got the message from last season, which we'll kind of come on to. European-wise, we were so unfortunate. Arsenal seed 1, Atletico Madrid seed 2. And for 45 minutes against Arsenal, they held their own, and then 2 really quick goals was enough to kill the tie. You've seen that Arsenal were just superior and fitter. 6-0 is never good, but there was some bits in there that you can kind of speak about. Atletico Madrid, again, 3-0, and it's just the gulf between... They're 10 years ahead of us, so the gulf between that is massive and something that we need to work out how to bridge. But overall, I'm a huge fan of Jo Potter, what she's trying to do. I like the intensity that I've seen from the team, and from a standstill kind of view at it, a snapshot view at it, it's been a positive first section of the campaign. What about you? What would you think?
Well, I think she bought really cleverly in the summer. I think she brought up Laura Rafferty, Northern Ireland International, knows exactly what it's all about. Katie Wilkinson, who I'm sure we'll come to very shortly, who has been prolific as prolific can be. I think she made a really good... I think bringing in Leah Eddy was really important for this season. I think it will be for the next sort of coming weeks. Great flexibility, can play anywhere across the defence, can of course move forward one into that maybe defensive role should we need her to. But I think those 3 in particular have been really good signings. I think it was one thing that I think has maybe passed by people a little bit. Last season, when Laura Berry went out to Motherwell on loan, had a really positive spell away on loan, and it has came back and has hit the ground running and is in and around the selection process, which is really important. It's easy for these youngsters, any level of football, maybe to go out on loan, come back and maybe still feel a bit stifled and not be involved. It's been exactly the opposite with her. She's went away, had a great time at Motherwell, came back, and she's in and around it. Hat-trick against Dundee United very recently. So I think the options and the flexibility that Jo has this season, I think you could argue is maybe better than last season, despite losing the importance of both Rachel's, which I think in Rachel McLaughlin's case particularly, she was so important going forward and offered so much more if she was tucking in to assist the ladies in midfield. So I think our options this year look really quite exciting. Like you, I'm a big fan of Jo Potter. I love the way she speaks. She always puts herself across really well. She is not too fussy to show that she is really scunnered. If she is really scunnered, you will know. If you're in the presence of Jo Potter, you will know what her mood is very early on from the minute she starts to speak to you. I think that's positive, and I think it's a quality because nothing's airbrushed. It's just exactly as it is, says in the tin. So all important. Interesting, Stevie, you speak about the the bridging of the gap between maybe what the women's team come up against domestically and the sort of Arsenal and Atletico Madrid ties just past there. And bridging that gap, you spoke to Donald Gillis, of course, pre-season. Was it something that he referred to and maybe give you an impression about how they feel long term? Certainly not short term because it's a bigger project, but long term, how it's something they can get at and maybe just decrease that gap.
Yeah, it was. It was actually something we spoke about. It was quite funny because he mentioned Joe as the type of person that just couldn't wait for a go at Arsenal, and that's the kind of for people maybe not knowing what she's like. That's exactly the kind of personality she has. Joe, she's a bit of a caged tiger at times on that sidelines, and I really like her. She's got a really positive, infectious kind of attitude towards everything. But the interview with Donald was really interesting. It's about 15 minutes long. I would encourage people to go and check it out if you are keen to find out more about the women's side. Obviously, it was a kind of deep dive into his past, what he can bring, how he kind of brings revenue and what the kind of aspirations of the club were and the team were. So bridging that gap, obviously, Scott, we didn't win the league, so the path into the Champions League is very, very difficult. We were extremely unlucky, 1 and 2 seeds, and I think Arsenal were quarterfinals last year. So Atletico Madrid went deep in as well. So we were extremely unlucky in that kind of view of what we done. Bridging that gap, I think, is just to continue to, first of all, we've got to domestically make sure that we're superior to everybody else. First domestic double last year was historic, Scottish Cup, etc. But we need to ensure that we're league winners. So that's the target. The target for the club this season, they've made it quite clear, is to go one more. So they've started off with a kind of heart that I quite like in the play, which we'll come to. But not to go over something again, but I think that's the first part of bridging the gap, and the first thing we spoke about with Donald Gillis is just make sure that we're winning leagues. And with the investment in the squad, the way Joe has it this year, it's going to be a huge failure if they don't. And I know that puts a lot of pressure on them, but they do look extremely strong, which we'll kind of come to as well. But that's job one. Until we can properly, Scott, become champions and completely get that nailed down, then we can't look beyond that. I think that's stage one of this, which is a journey to try and claw back to where we are. But if you win the league, progress becomes easier after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, if you win the league, it opens up your ability to maybe bring even a further better quality of player up the road, because you can promote Champions League football as a carrot, as a caveat to come up and play in front of the support up here. So I would tend to agree, but getting that championship over the line is important. And you would imagine, in exactly the same way as it should be for any Rangers manager, that has to be priority number one before a ball is kicked at the start of the season. Katie Wilkinson obviously came in the summer, Stevie. And one thing I think we did have last season, I don't know if you agree with this or not, I felt there was a real reliability on Rio Hardy and Kirsty Howat last season, because of how we know what they can do, we know what they can give us. We know that they're going to score goals, and indeed they've done it already this season. Must have been a concern that there was an over-reliance on them over the course of the season, and the legs could only go so far. I think bringing in Katie Wilkinson and playing the role that she's obviously playing so far, which is ultimately your good old-fashioned 6-yard box striker. You stay in there, we'll get the ball to you, and you will score. She scored in every league game so far this season. 1, 2, 3, 4 hat-tricks, I think, so far. And she is someone who I think the fans will obviously be in love with already. She does the hard bit of the game. She puts the ball in the back of the net. And I think it allows Joe to potentially manage the time of Kirsty Howat and Rio Hardy maybe a little bit better than she's been afforded the privilege last year.
Yeah, listen, huge point. Last season, when Rangers began to fell away, Kirsty Howat got injured in February, and Rio hit a wall.
Yeah,
you could see it in her performance and in our kind of physical output as well. She was done in. And I think at that point, we've got to remember, I think Rio hit 33 goals last year.
Yeah.
So I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure she was up there. And in the last 3-4 months, and I don't want to be critical because it's really difficult, but let's just say she never hit the heights of the first 6 months at the club, and I think that's fair. Jo commented on it herself. So now the options are Katie Wilkinson, Kirsty Howat, Rio Hardy, Jane Ross, Sarah Ewan, Laura Berry. All of them, right, capable. Jane Ross, Sarah Ewan are Scotland internationals, and they've not even, obviously fitness-wise, etc., not even been in and around it. Yeah. Laura Berry is a goal scorer, but Katie Wilkinson's a cheat code, Scott. Like, it's ridiculous. 4 hat-tricks, I think 14 goals so far. She is, let's just say this as kind of kindly as I possibly can. She is a penalty box player. She's not going to link up the way Rio does. She's not going to do the powerful running. She is there to do one thing and one thing only, and that is poach. She's a good old-fashioned poacher. She will stand and just belt the ball in the net, which she's done. So it's been an incredible start for her, and I think what we need to try and do is, and I think Joe's maybe learned this with Rio, is ensure that we don't burn her out the way that what happened with Rio. So there should be plenty of options there to switch in and switch about. But it's been a fantastic start for her. So it's going to be interesting to see if she can continue that, because I think that's a big challenge. And then score in the very, very big games. And I'm not talking about Arsenal and Atletico Madrid, because I do believe that for us that's slightly too high. That's the equivalent of the men playing Real Madrid and Barcelona. I just don't think it's possible at this stage. But she needs to score Celtic, Glasgow City, Hibs, Hearts. These are the big games in the league. So that's a challenge for her score. But she's been very impressive so far.
It'll be interesting to see what happens this year. I genuinely think Hearts have got an opportunity of sort of splitting the group. Obviously, previously we've always seen ourselves, Celtic and Glasgow City, as the 3 that eventually pull away. And I'm not suggesting for a second that over the fullness of the season that it won't be like that, but I think Hearts are building something really quite positive and may just surprise people as the season goes on. Listen, it's good to hear you talk about Katie Wilkinson effectively being the number 9 and the focal point in there. I think by having her as the main striker, I actually think it works out okay for your Rio Hardys and your Kirsty Howats of this world, because they do have that ability to drop off. And historically last season, when we've seen Rachel Rowe playing as the 10, I almost felt that the formation would have to be rejigged to accommodate her unfairly, I would say, to be perfectly honest with you, because there were games towards the end of last season where you could see she wasn't quite at it through injury, etc. So I do wonder if Joe Potter does want to go back to that, having a 10. I think Rio Hardy or Kirsty Howat can probably play that role and still retain the goal scoring risk of Katie Wilkinson up front. And I think that's important, because we saw at Hampden last year in the Hearts final, she chose to go with 3 across the centre. So McLean, Chelsea Cornet and Liv McLaughlin, 3 really, really handy midfielders. And I would argue are the 3 starting midfielders moving forward. None of them, Stevie, I would suggest have the, I don't want to say the ability, but none of them you would pick as a 10, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, I like the point on Kirsty and Rio. Both of them can be deep line forwards, basically, where they can do their strongest kind of work outside the box and running and be powerful runners. Rio especially, I think, in her pre-Christmas form was very good and very strong at doing that. And Kirsty is more, I think, around the box than Rio, possibly. So it's an interesting blend. What she does have, Joe, is an abundance of options, which I think is really interesting. You've also got Camille Lafay, who's just come in as well, and she seems a 10. She seems like that's her position. She's very technical. She's very slight, isn't she? I like already the small glimpses. We haven't seen a lot, but the small glimpses of her. So she's another option in there. There's so many options that you can do. Keeping Liv, I think, was vital. I think Liv is a cracking little player. Kirsty's been really unlucky from February onwards with injury. Back, now injured again. Chelsea injured again. I think losing Kirsty and Chelsea for that European games was just such a hammer blow as well, because they're your two, especially Chelsea. Scott, I think in the last year under Joe, she's come on immeasurably. Now a full Scotland international, scoring goals at Scotland level. I think she's been terrific. So you take them out of the team, it's like the equivalent of taking Diamande and Barron out of the men's team at this moment in time. So we've still, I think, there's still more to come from a team that's goal difference after 5 games is plus 44. So as ridiculous as that sounds, there's still more to this group. And there's more individual performances. So with the 3 in midfield and the 10 and strikers, etc., there's a lot that Joe can do. There's a lot of competition now. Not only, at up front in midfield, but at the back as well. So I think that we look really strong.
And it's true what you say. One of the things you mentioned was just about 10 minutes or so ago, we spoke about the depth, rather easy for me to say, that she has at the sort of forefront of our dressing room. We've not even spoke about Brogan Hay, Mia McCauley, Jodie McCleary. You've still got Megan Bell in and around the squad. So the options there, particularly offensively, are really, really exciting. And there's no doubt that that's the area where come May next year, Joe Potter will be judged, because goals will win you games. And if she's lifting the trophy at Broadwood above her head, she'll know that offensive players have ultimately scored the goals to get them into that position. And that's why, the start of the season they've had and how electric it's been. And we say, plus 44 as far as the goals scored are concerned. It's incredible. And a lot of it goes down to how hard they're working on a daily basis, and how the offensive players are being used and rested and used. And I think it's quite important. I think there's a lot going on in the women's setup just now, particularly with the Rangers women, that we can be quite excited about and look forward to what's coming next.
Yeah, definitely think so. Look, I think we'd all. This is what I want to point out, that there's a lot of heart in this team because of losing that league basically in the 93rd minute last year on goal difference. Rangers caused that themselves. They were 8 points clear at one point and flying. Then the wheels come off, people get injured, etc., etc. I think there's a real determination early on to make sure that goal difference will never hurt us again. You can see it. The squad is so powerful now that she can do that, Joe. If strikers aren't playing, there's another 4 waiting to come on, etc. So even positions on the bench, I think that from that point of view, Scott, it's exciting for us, because you're now going into games, right? And it's not being disrespectful to other teams, but there's certain games you're going into, like take Thistle, for example, who are probably round about mid-table, one of your better teams, got to the cup final last year, particularly made it difficult. We drew 0-0 away with them. We beat them 4-0 a couple of weeks ago, a game that I managed to take in, and we were disappointed. It was only 4-0. And as ridiculous as it sounds, I think that's the kind of hunger behind this team now. So we are going into games not looking to win games. You're going into games looking to punish teams and put down a marker. Now already we've got 15 out of 15. Celtic have already taken points off at Glasgow City, beating them 1-0, and then Celtic have drawn 0-0 at Hibs. Now, people might look at this and think, well, why is that significant? Because every drop point outside of City and Celtic is massive. It was draws last season at Thistle, Hearts, etc. that cost us. The season before, the games against Hearts under Malky cost us. So these are the big games. Celtic and City, you can take points off each other, and that'll all more or less, as history tells you, balance out. It's the other games, Scott, now we're 5 games in and they've already slipped up a wee bit. And Hibs are strong this year. They've started well, as of Hearts. So there's more challenges in this league to be excited about. There's more potential where the games against head-to-heads against each other are going to be really important. But as you said, there's now other challenges and other games to kind of motivate yourself for. And I think there might be more drop points this season than there was in previous seasons, that's for sure. But Rangers, from an exciting point of view, setting this pace early on, another home game on Sunday, they just have to keep dominating. every single time, put the foot down and get the goals in and make sure that they're sending out a really strong message.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we do have the first big game, if you like, in Ayr Commas coming not so far away now, 3rd of October, Old Firm game at Broadwood Celtic come to us, which will surely be a gauge for whatever happens. And we have three really difficult, sort of away, or tricky rather. I think it's weekend, midweek, weekend, just ahead of that, and all the way from home. 2, I think, at Dundee United and 1 in the Cup. So lots of games to come. Steve, I want to speak to you about Mia Macaulay. Incredibly made her 50th appearance for Rangers women's team after Dundee United, I'm sure it was. And I remember watching Mia a couple of times last year, and indeed I spoke to Claire Gemmill about this. Claire Gemmill, I should say, will be joining us here in the podcast network in the not too distant future, which we really look forward to welcoming her. She's got way better knowledge than you or I in the first place, Stevie, so she'll be a good addition. I remember Claire speaking about Mia and saying, when Claire was in and around the sort of setup and as I say, captain in those days, Mia was the one that stepped out. She was the one that showed there was a prowess there, a determination, an ability to really go for it. For someone so young to be trusted to make 50 appearances, and I think Jo Potter's got a huge part to play in her development in the last sort of 12 months or so. It's really good to see, and it shows that, as Jo said previously, if you're young enough, you're good enough, you're going to play, I trust you.
Yeah, she's been terrific. Made her debut at 16, turned 17, now just turned 18, and I think she's been fantastic. Jo's done a good job of rotating her in and out with Brogan, and they kind of share that role a wee bit. And she's taken her opportunity. Scored some wonderful goals, Scott, as well. She's got that bit of trickery, and this is. I don't like making comparisons to the men's game, but people watching it, if you're looking to think, who's this young winger, it's kind of comparable to when Chris Burke burst into the scene for Rangers all those many years ago.
Yeah.
Slight, she's quite small, she's quite slight, but she's really good on the ball, really tricky, makes lots of opportunities, scores goals. She's like a female version of that style of player.
Can I just say as well, before you go on, it's good for two baldies to refer to two people that had such good hair.
It certainly is, but what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to compare, but in styles,
No, you're right, absolutely.
Styles, I think that they're quite similar, and I think she's been great. And what really pleases me is, although they're bringing in your Leah Eddies, your Katie Wilkinsons, your Laura Rafferty's, Liv, Lafay, etc. That your presence in that team, Jodie, Mia, Laura, Ailey Austin. I think Ailey Austin is cracking as well, by the way. Yeah. Potentially long term, I think she's really, really great. So you've got 4 or 5 there of young Scots all coming through, not to mention Kirsty McLean. We lost Emma Watson, who I thought moved too quickly. She would have flourished under Jo, I think. And I think that we've got a real core there that we can be proud of. And then you've got more coming through. I think it's young Sophie Black. Is that right?
Yeah.
She's been running around the team and really young as well. So I really like that Jo keeps that pathway open. And Mia to smash 50 games already is quite incredible. And she's somebody that's only going to be better, and we'll be lucky in the coming years to keep a hold of her, I think.
It's good that you mentioned Sophie Black, because someone, again, so young is now at the stage where she can look up to someone who's probably not that much older than her, as far as a role model's concerned, and someone who is, given the opportunity. Jo Potter's given Mia Macaulay the opportunity to go on and sort of take the baton, if you like, and take your chance and seize your opportunity. She's done it, and as I say, to get to 50 games, I think is mightily impressive. And she's became. I actually said to Jo Potter last season when I spoke to her, I wondered how far up the team sheet she was when she was naming an 11. And she certainly gave me the impression she was right up there. There's some obvious people that you would want to have in there from an experience perspective, but there's no doubt that Macaulay is right at the top of that list on the team sheet. Stevie, we're looking after someone from a sponsorship perspective this season, and we're really pleased about it. Let us know who we're looking after this season.
I am delighted to be to say that we are Four Lads of the Dream are sponsoring Catherine Hill. So, as you know, Scott, Kath and I are really close pals, and she came on Four Lads podcast 6 years ago when she was in Durham and playing down there, and we kept in contact. And she is just a fantastic person. So to get the opportunity to sponsor your mate has been incredible, and it allows us as well to support the women's team. It allows us to put some money back into the club. Because it's all right, Ibrox doing mid-tier sponsorship and things like that. That's all great. We're hoping, to kind of make that investment and coverage in the women's game as well. So delighted. She is obviously vice captain, and it's a big thing for us as well. So yeah, all round positive, and we'll hopefully, be able to bring you more coverage from the women's team as well this season. So it's a really positive thing, Scott, I think.
Yeah, no, listen, it absolutely is. There's lots going on about the Rangers women's team just now to be happy about, and as I say, to be excited about. I think one of the things that we can probably end on now, I'd like to maybe just speak a little bit about what Joe Potter's maybe assessment of things have been so far, Stevie. My own personal opinion is, as I've said, league is the bread and butter. She cannot possibly be disappointed at 0 goals conceded and X amount of goals scored, a couple of real drubbings for some teams, sadly for them. She must be happy with the players that have come in the summer and the way they fitted in and the gelling that probably seems to have been quite minimal, to be perfectly honest with you. Everyone seems to have fitted in really quite well. Maybe tinged with a little bit of disappointment at the way that the European campaign has fizzled out. But as we've said, 2 really difficult ties against 2 teams that you would imagine would go a long way in the tournament, to be perfectly frank with you. If you're Joe Potter, what's your mindset at based on what you've seen up until now, do you think?
Well, Joe will want more. We know Joe. We know what Joe's like. She will have seen 5 wins, 44 goals scored, none conceded, and she'll be saying it should be 50. Yeah. So that's what Joe's like, and she'll want more. She'll not be happy anymore with victories. She wants resounding, pressure on everybody in that league. She wants to send a message, and I think there's, from Joe's point of view, I think that she's recruited really well, like you said right at the very start. I think that's been key, having lost some really big players. So Donald and her have got that right, what it looks like so far, and the intensity and the shape and things so far has been good. Europe will be a huge disappointment. She'll be angry at that, and she'll want a reaction in the domestic stuff. So I am looking forward to seeing how they'll respond, Scott, and I'm looking forward to seeing, what reaction we get in terms of not only individually but collectively.
Yeah.
So the group have got that opportunity. They've seen what it's like. How much do they want it to have another shot at it?
No, absolutely. Listen, before I let you disappear, I do want to say thanks to our sponsorships and the people that are looking after us all season. It allows us to do things like this: Rhino Express, Clyde View Joinery, Art of Gold, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, and our good friends out across at Black Rooster. We thank them all. We would not be able to do what we do if it wasn't for their support. If you are following us already on our YouTube, thanks for doing that. If you're not, get yourself involved, put your notifications on, so each time we release any content, you will get a notification and you can check us out, whatever we're saying. Stevie, I think you guys will be returning on Friday, looking ahead to Dundee United for the men's team.
Yeah, we will be. We'll be back with the weekend pod, and then we're hoping to be covering from Dundee United if we get access on Sunday. If we don't, we will be hopefully covering the women's game against Spartans on Sunday afternoon. If we're lucky and we get into both, there'll be coverage from both. So we will wait and see. There is, what I would say is we are aware that this is a new channel and it's a new thing we're trying to do. The support's been incredible. We don't want to start flooding you with lots and lots of shows and maybe dilutes what we're trying to do. But there is the match day vlogs and there is the weekly pods from ourselves, and as well as the Sunday show which you host and do as well. So there is quite a lot available for people, and we've loved the support. So yeah, we'll be back Friday. We'll be back at the weekend too, and let's hope that we can start reporting on some positive Rangers news.
Yes, absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stevie, thanks very much. We will see you again in the not too distant future.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Loved it.
Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.